This week on Wealth Track, what's holding women back from taking charge of their financial future? Jewelle Bickford of Evercore Wealth Management explains the steps she takes to financially empower her women clients. Next on Consuelo Mack Wealth Track. I began the interview by asking her why it is so crucial for women to manage their financial lives.
Well, because quite literally, their life may depend on it. Life's transitions or events don't happen at a convenient time. I have lots of young friends who were out of a job after 2008, some of them for as long as 19 months. I have women who are taking care of aging parents or an aging spouse, or God forbid that they are widowed. So the surveys show that women don't deal with their finances until there's a crisis. And at that time, they are bereft. It is exactly the time not to want to be learning on the job. And if 9 out of 10 of us are going to be solely responsible for our wealth at some period in our lives, why don't we start early?
And why don't we start early? Why are women so reluctant to take charge of their finances?
Well, I think there are a couple of reasons, and I think it's best described by fear. The surveys again show that 47% of all the women in the United States fear running out of money before they die. And of that 47%, almost a third of those women have good jobs and good salaries. So it's fear. It's the bag.
This is the bag lady syndrome, right?
The bag lady syndrome. And so it's intimidating. And you don't know where to begin. And when you hear the media screaming and the market's gone down, you almost would rather not think about it.
You know, one of the things that you told me before this interview was that another reason that women are reluctant or just don't get involved is because we're so busy living, period. And that it seems so daunting and overwhelming that we're taking care of everything else in our lives instead of focusing on our finances, which seems like a selfish thing to do. I mean, how do you overcome that?
Well, I think we start in our office with self-awareness. It's very important to understand the emotional ties you have with wealth. Kate Levinson wrote a wonderful book called Emotional Currency. And I recommend that to a lot of my female clients for the very reasons you say. They're very busy and they're happy to put it off.
Right.
And they're happy to delegate it to me. And that's all right up to a certain point. But we have to understand what their goals are in the context of their wealth. And so I start with self-awareness.
And talk to me about the self-awareness, how important, why that's so important, and maybe for women in particular, that our early experience with money is just kind of, shades our entire view of money for the rest of our lives?
Absolutely. Think of, unless you have self-awareness about it.
Right.
One of my really good friends who you may have interviewed on this program, who's a very, very successful woman on Wall Street, told me that several years after she was earning a 6-figure salary, she was walking through Saks Fifth Avenue and she saw fur coats on sale. And she said to herself, I can buy that fur coat. Well, she had been able to buy that fur coat for 15 years, but her childhood, when she was raised in very modest circumstances, her ties to wealth were from her memories that I can't afford that fur coat. So I think first you have to understand that, and often it's overspending. It's not just not being able to spend.
And the flip side of that too is that if you come from very comfortable circumstances or a wealthy background, you can't imagine being poor. And that's unrealistic as well, right?
Yes, and many, many millennials who come from families of wealth have that problem, bringing their spending under control. So I start with self-awareness, and I start with the intimidation factor. I have many friends who say to me, I would say at least one a week, Jewelle, I'm not good at math. You're good at math. My husband takes care of the money. I don't really want to get into that. We have to break it down for them to want to engage. You have to break it down into small bits. And your financial advisor has to be willing to work with you, because women have very different ways of investing than men do.